Servant of God, God spoke to Joshua, Moses' assistant. Moses, my servant, is dead. Get going. Cross this Jordan River, you and all the people. Cross to the country I'm giving to the people of Israel. I'm giving you every square inch of the land you set your foot on, just as I promised Moses. From the wilderness in this Lebanon, east to the great river, the Euphrates River, all the Hittite country, and then west to the great sea. It's all yours. All your life, no one will be able to hold out against you. In the same way I was with Moses, I will be with you. I won't give up on you. I won't leave you. Strength, courage. You're going to lead this people to inherit the land that I promised to give their ancestors. Give it everything you have, heart and soul. Make sure you carry out the revelation that Moses commanded you. Every bit of it. Don't get off track, either left or right, so as to make sure you get to where you're going. And don't for a minute let this book of the Revelation be out of mind. Ponder and meditate on it day and night, making sure you practice everything written in it. Then you'll get where you're going. Then you'll succeed. Haven't I commanded you? Strength, courage. Don't be timid. Don't get discouraged. God, your God, is with you every step you take. The taking of the land. Then Joshua gave orders to the people's leaders. Go through the camp and give this order to the people. Pack your bags. In 3 days you will cross this Jordan River to enter and take the land God, your God, is giving you to possess. Then Joshua addressed the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. He said, remember what Moses, the servant of God, commanded you. God, your God, gives you rest, and he gives you this land. Your wives, your children, and your livestock can stay here east of the Jordan, the country Moses gave you, but you, tough soldiers, must cross the river in battle formation, leading your brothers, helping them until God, your God, gives you your brothers a place of rest, just as he has done for you. They also will take possession of the land that God, your God, has given them. Then you'll be free to return to your possession given to you by Moses, the servant of God, across the Jordan to the east. They answered Joshua, everything you commanded us we'll do. Wherever you send us, we'll go. We obeyed Moses to the letter. We'll also obey you. We just pray that God, your God, will be with you as he was with Moses. Anyone who questions what you say and refuses to obey whatever you commanded him will be put to death. Strength, courage. Joshua chapter 2, Rahab. Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent out from Shittim 2 men as spies. Go look over the land. Check out Jericho. They left and arrived at the house of a harlot named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, we've just learned that men arrived tonight to spy out the land. They're from the people of Israel. The king of Jericho sent word to Rahab, bring out the men who came to you to stay the night in your house. They're spies. They've come to spy out the whole country. The woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, yes, 2 men did come to me, but I didn't know where they'd come from. At dark, when the gate was about to be shut, the men left. But I have no idea where they went. Hurry up, chase them. You can still catch them. She had actually taken them up on the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax that were spread out for her on the roof. So the men gave chase down the Jordan road towards the fords. As soon as they were gone, the gate was shut. Before the spies were down for the night, the woman came up to them on the roof and said, I know that God has given you the land. We're all afraid. Everyone in the country feels hopeless. We heard how God dried up the waters of the Red Sea before you when you left Egypt, and what he did to the 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you put under a holy curse and destroyed. A holy curse. We heard it and our hearts sank. We all had the wind knocked out of us, and all because of you and God your God, God of the heavens above and God of the earth below. Now promise me by God, I showed you mercy. Now show my family mercy and give me some tangible proof, a guarantee of the life for my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, everyone connected with my family. Save our souls from death, our lives for yours, said the men. But don't tell anyone our business. When God turns his land over to us, we'll do right by you in loyal mercy. She lowered them down out a window with a rope because her house was on the city wall to the outside. She told them, run for the hills so your pursuers won't find you. Hide out for 3 days and give your pursuers time to return. Then get on your way. The men told her, in order to keep this oath you made us swear, here's what you must do. Hang this red rope out of the window through which you let us down, and gather your entire family with you in your house, father, mother, brothers, and sisters. Anyone who goes out the doors of your house into the street and is killed, it's his own fault. We aren't responsible. But for everyone within the house, we take full responsibility. If anyone lays a hand on one of them, it's our fault. But if you tell anyone our business here, the oath you made us swear is canceled. We're no longer responsible. She said, if that's what you say, that's the way it is, and sent them all. They left, and she hung the red rope out the window. They headed for the hills and stayed there for 3 days until the pursuers had returned. The pursuers had looked high and low, but found nothing. The men headed back. They came down out the hills, crossed the river, and returned to Joshua, son of Nun, and reported all their experiences. They told Joshua, yes, God has given the whole country to us. Everybody there is in a state of panic because of us. Joshua chapter 3, the Jordan. Joshua was up early on his way from Shittim with all the people of Israel with him. He arrived at the Jordan and camped before crossing over. After 3 days, leaders went through the camp and gave out orders to the people. When you see the covenant chest of God, your God, carried by the Levitical priest, start moving. Follow it. Make sure you keep a proper distance between you and it, about half a mile. Be sure now to keep your distance, and you'll see clearly the route to take. You've never been on this road before. Then Joshua addressed the people, sanctify yourselves. Tomorrow God will work miracle wonders among you. Joshua instructed the priests, take up the chest of the covenant and step out before the people. So they took it up in process before the people. God said to Joshua, this very day I will begin to make you great in the eyes of all Israel. They'll see for themselves that I'm with you in the same way that I was with Moses. You will command the priests who are carrying the chest of the covenant. When you come to the edge of the Jordan's waters, stand there on the river bank. Then Joshua addressed the people of Israel. Attention, listen to what God your God has to say. This is how you'll know that God is alive among you. He will completely dispossess before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites. Look at what's before you, the chest of the covenant. Think of it. The master of the entire earth is crossing the Jordan as you watch. Now take 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 man from each tribe. When the soles of the feet of the priests carrying the chest of God, master of all the earth, touch the Jordan's water, the flow of water will be stopped. The water coming from upstream will pile up in a heap. And that's what happened. The people left their tents to cross the Jordan, led by the priests carrying the chest of the covenant. When the priests got to the Jordan and their feet touched the water at the edge, the Jordan overflows its banks throughout the harvest. The flow of water stopped. It piled up in a heap a long way off. At Adam, which is near Zarethan, the river went dry all the way down to the Arabah Sea, the Salt Sea, and the people crossed facing Jericho. And there they stood. Those priests carrying the chest of the covenant stood firmly planted on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan while all Israel crossed on dry ground. Finally, the whole nation was across the Jordan and not one wet foot. The book of Joshua, chapter 4. When the whole nation was finally across, God spoke to Joshua. Select 12 men from the people, a man from each tribe, and tell them, from right here, the middle of the Jordan, where the feet of the priests are standing firm, take 12 stones, carry them across with you, and set them down in the place where you camp tonight. Joshua called out the 12 men whom he selected from the people of Israel, 1 man from each tribe. Joshua directed them, cross to the middle of the Jordan and take your place in front of the chest of God your God. Each of you heft a stone to your shoulder, a stone for each of the tribes of the people of Israel, so you'll have something later to mark the occasion. When your children ask you, what are these stones to you? You'll say, the flow of the Jordan was stopped in front of the chest of the covenant of God as it crossed the Jordan, stopped in its tracks. These stones are a permanent memorial for the people of Israel. The people of Israel did exactly as Joshua commanded. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, a stone for each of the 12 tribes, just as God had instructed Joshua. Carry them across with them to the camp and set them down there. Joshua set up the 12 stones taken from the middle of the Jordan that had marked the place where the priests who carried the chest of the covenant had stood. There they are still today. They are still there today. The priests carrying the chest continued standing in the middle of the Jordan until everything God had instructed Joshua to tell the people to do was done, confirming what Moses had instructed Joshua. The people crossed. No one dawdled. When the crossing of all the people was complete, they watched as the chest of the covenant and the priests crossed over. The Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh had crossed over in battle formation in front of the people of Israel, obedient to Moses' instructions. All told, about 40,000 armed soldiers crossed over before God to the plains of Jericho, ready for battle. God made Joshua great that day in the sight of all Israel. They were in awe of him just as they had been in awe of Moses all his life. God told Joshua, command the priests carrying the chest of the testimony to come up from the Jordan. Joshua commanded the priests, come up out of the Jordan. They did it. The priests carrying God's chest of the covenant came up from the middle of the Jordan. As soon as the soles of the priests' feet touched dry land, the Jordan's waters resumed their flow within the banks just as before. The people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. They set up camp at Gilgal, which means the circle, to the east of Jericho. Joshua erected a monument at the Gilgal using the 12 stones that they had taken from the Jordan. And then he told the people of Israel, in the days to come when your children ask their fathers, What are these stones doing here? Tell your children this. Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry ground. Yes, God your God dried up the Jordan's waters for you until you had crossed, just as God your God did at the Red Sea, which had dried up before us until we had crossed. This was so that everybody on earth would recognize how strong God's rescuing hand is, and so that you would hold God in solemn reverence always. Joshua chapter 5. When all the Amorite kings west of the Jordan and the Canaanite kings along the seacoast heard how God had stopped the Jordan River before the people of Israel until they had crossed over, their hearts sank. The courage drained out of them just thinking about the people of Israel. At that time, God said to Joshua, make stone knives and circumcise the people of Israel a second time. A second time. So Joshua made stone knives and circumcised the people of Israel at Foreskins Hill. This is why Joshua conducted the circumcision. All the males who had left Egypt, the soldiers, had died in the wilderness on the journey out of Egypt. All the people who had come out of Egypt, of course, had been circumcised, but all those born in the wilderness along the way since leaving Egypt had not been. Okay, that answers that. The fact is that the people of Israel had walked through that wilderness for 40 years until the entire nation had died out. All the men of military age who had come out of Egypt but had disobeyed the call of God. God vowed that these would never lay eyes on the land God had solemnly promised their ancestors to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. But their children had replaced them. These are the ones Joshua circumcised. They had never been circumcised. No one had circumcised them along the way. When they had completed the circumcising of the whole nation, they stayed where they were in the camp until they were healed. God said to Joshua, today I've rolled away the reproach of Egypt. That's why the place is called the Gilgal. It's still called that. The people of Israel continued to camp at the Gilgal. They celebrated the Passover on the evening of the 14th day of the month on the plains of Jericho. Right away, the day after the Passover, they started eating the produce of that country, unraised bread and roasted grain. And then no more manna. The manna stopped. As soon as they started eating food grown in the land, there was no more manna for the people of Israel. That year they ate from the crops of Canaan. And then this, while Joshua was there near Jericho, he looked up and saw right in front of him a man standing, holding his drawn sword. Joshua stepped up to him and said, whose side are you on, ours or our enemies? He said, neither. I'm the commander of God's army. I've just arrived. Joshua fell face to the ground in worship. He asked, what orders does my master have for his servant? God's army commander ordered Joshua, take your sandals off your feet. The place you are standing on is holy. Joshua did it. Joshua chapter 6, Jericho. Jericho was shut up tight as a drum because of the people of Israel. No one going in, no one coming out. God spoke to Joshua, look sharp now. I've already given Jericho to you, along with its kings and its elite forces. Here's what you are to do. March around the city, all your soldiers. Circle the city once. Repeat this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry 7 rams' horn trumpets in front of the chest. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times. The priests blowing away on the trumpets, and then a long blast on the ram's horn. When you hear that, all the people are to shout at the top of their lungs. The city wall will collapse at once. All the people are to enter, every man straight on it. So Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests and told them, take up the chest of the covenant. 7 priests are to carry 7 ram's horn trumpets leading God's chest. Then he told the people, set out, march around the city. Have the armed guard march before the chest of God. And it happened, Joshua spoke, the people moved. 7 priests with their 7 ram's horn trumpets set out before God. They blew the trumpets, leading God's chest to the covenant. The armed guard marched ahead of the trumpet blowing priests. The rear guard was marching after the chest, marching and blowing their trumpets. Joshua had given orders to the people. Don't shout. In fact, don't even speak, not so much as a whisper until you hear me say, shout, then shout away. Well, you got to say it better than that. Shout. He sent the chest of God on its way around the city. It circled once, came back to the camp and stayed for the night. Joshua was up early the next morning, and the priests took up the chest of God. The 7 priests carrying the 7 ram's horns trumpets marched before the chest of God, marching and blowing trumpets, with the armed guard marching before and the rear guard marching after, marching and blowing of trumpets. On the 2nd day, they again circled the city once and returned to the camp. They did this 6 days. When the 7th day came, they got up early and marched around the city the same way, but 7 times. Yes, this day they circled the city 7 times. On the 7th time around, the priest blew the trumpets, and Joshua signaled to the people, shout, God has given you the city and everything in it under a holy curse, and offer it up to God. Except for Rahab the harlot, she is to live, she and everyone in her house with her, because she hid the agents we sent. As for you, watch yourselves in the city under holy curse. Be careful that you don't covet anything in it and take something that's cursed, endangering the camp of Israel with the curse and making trouble for everyone. All silver and gold, all vessels of bronze and iron are holy to God. Put them in God's treasury. The priests blew the trumpets. When the people heard the blast of trumpets, they gave a thunderclap shout. The wall fell at once. The people rushed straight into the city and took it. They put everything in the city under the holy curse, killing man and woman, young and old, ox and sheep and donkey. Joshua ordered the 2 men who had spied out the land, enter the house of the harlot and rescue the woman and everyone connected with her, just as you promised her. So the young spies went in and brought out Rahab, her father, mother, and brothers, everyone connected with her. They got the whole family out and gave them a place outside the camp of Israel. But they burned down the city and everything in it, except for the gold and silver and bronze and iron vessels. All that they put in the treasury of God's house. But Joshua let Rahab the harlot live, Rahab and her father's household and everyone connected to her. She is still alive, well in Israel, because she hid the agents whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. Joshua swore a solemn oath at that time. Cursed before God is the man who sets out to rebuild this city, Jericho. He'll pay for the foundation with his firstborn son. He'll pay for the gates with his youngest son. God was with Joshua. He became famous all over the land. Joshua chapter 7, Achan. Then the people of Israel violated the holy curse. Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of the cursed things. God became angry with the people of Israel. Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, the ruin, which means the ruin, which is near Beth-aven, just east of Bethel. He instructed them, go up and spy out the land. The men went up and spied out Ai. They returned to Joshua and reported, don't bother sending a lot of people. 2,000 or 3,000 men are enough to defeat Ai. Don't wear out the whole army. There aren't that many people there. So 3,000 men went up and then fled in defeat before the men of Ai. The men of Ai killed 36, chased them from the city gate as far as the quarries, killing them at the descent. The heart of the people sank, all spirit knocked out of them. Joshua ripped his clothes and fell on his face to the ground before the chest of God, he and the leaders, throwing dirt on their heads, prostrate until evening. Joshua said, oh, Master God, why did you insist on bringing this people across the Jordan? To make us victims of the Amorites? To wipe us out? Why didn't we just settle down on the east side of the Jordan? Oh, Master, what can I say after this? After Israel has been run off by its enemies. When the Canaanites and all the others living here get wind of this, they'll gang up on us and make short work of us. And then how will you keep up your reputation? God said to Joshua, get up. Why are you groveling? Israel has sinned. They've broken the covenant I commanded them. They've taken forbidden plunder, stolen, and then covered up the theft, hoarding it up with their own stuff. The people of Israel can no longer look their enemies in the eye. They themselves are plunder. I can't continue with you if you don't rid yourselves of the cursed things. So get started. Purify the people. Tell them, get ready for tomorrow by purifying yourselves. For this is what God, the God of Israel, says. There are cursed things in the camp. You won't be able to face your enemies until you've gotten rid of these cursed things. First thing in the morning, you will be called up by tribes. The tribe God names will be the tribe God names will come up clan by clan. The clan God names will come up family by family, and the family God names will come up man by man. The person found with the cursed things will be burned, he and everything he has, because he broke God's covenant and did this despicable thing in Israel. Joshua was up at the crack of dawn and called Israel up tribe by tribe. The tribe of Judah was singled out. Then he called up the clans and singled out the Zerites. He called up the Zerite families and singled out the Zabdi family. He called up the family members one by one and singled out Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah. Joshua spoke to Achan, my son, give glory to God, the God of Israel. Make your confession to him. Tell me what you did. Don't keep back anything from me. Achan answered Joshua, it's true. I sinned against God, the God of Israel. This is how I did it. In the plunder, I spotted a beautiful Shinar robe, 200 shekels of silver and a 50 shekel bar of gold, and I coveted them. They are buried in my tent with the silver at the bottom. Joshua sent off messengers. They ran to the tent And there it was, buried in the tent with the silver at the bottom. They took the stuff from the tent and brought it to Joshua and to all the people of Israel and spread it out before God. Joshua took Achan, son of Zerah, took the silver, the robe, the gold bar, his sons and daughters, which I don't think that's right because they didn't do nothing, his ox, donkey, and poor animals, his ox, donkey, sheep, and tent, everything connected with him, and all Israel was there. They led them off to the valley of Achor, which means trouble valley. Joshua said, "Why have you troubled us? God will now trouble you today." And all Israel stoned him, burned him with fire, and stoned him with stones. They piled a huge pile of stones over him. It's still there. Only then did God turn from his hot anger. That's how the place came to be called Trouble Valley right up to the present time. So surely they didn't take all of that and destroy all them people. They stoned him, burned him. Okay. Because his family's not responsible for all of that. Joshua chapter 8, Ai. God said to Joshua, don't be timid and don't so much as hesitate. Take all your soldiers with you and go back to Ai. I've turned the king of Ai over to you, his people, his city, and his land. Do to Ai and its king what you did to Jericho and its king. Only this time you may plunder its stuff and the cattle to your heart's content. Set an ambush behind the city. Joshua and all his soldiers got ready to march on Ai. Joshua chose 30,000 men, tough, seasoned fighters, and sent them off at night with these orders. Pay me all your attention now. Lie in ambush behind the city. Get as close as you can. Stay alert. I and the troops with me will approach the city head on. When they come out to meet us, just as before, we'll turn and run. They'll come after us, leaving the city. As we're off and running, they'll say, they're running away just like the first time. That's your signal to spring from your ambush and take the city. God, your God, will hand it to you on a platter. Once you have the city, burn it down. God says it. You do it. Go do it. Go to it, rather. I've given you your orders. Joshua sent them off. They set their ambush and waited between Bethel and Ai. Just west of Ai, Joshua spent the night with the people. Joshua was up early in the morning and mustered his army. He and the leaders of Israel led the troops to Ai. The whole army, fighting men all, marched right up within the side of the city and set camp on the north side of Ai. There was a valley between them and Ai. He had taken about 5,000 men and put them in ambush between Bethel and Ai west of the city. They were all deployed, the main army to the north of the city and the ambush to the west. Joshua spent the night in the valley. So it happened that when the king of Ai saw all this, the men of the city lost no time. They were out of there at the crack of dawn to join Israel in battle. The king and his troops had a field en route to the Arabah. The king didn't know of the ambush set against him behind the city. Joshua and all the people let themselves be chased. They ran toward the wilderness. Everybody in the city was called to the chase. They pursued Joshua and were led away from the city. There wasn't a soul left in Ai or Bethel who wasn't out there chasing after Israel. The city was left empty and undefended as they were chasing Israel down. Then God spoke to Joshua, stretch out the javelin in your hand toward Ai. I'm giving it to you. Joshua stretched out the javelin in his hand toward Ai. At the signal, the men in ambush sprang to their feet, ran to the city, took it, and quickly had it up in flames. The men of Ai looked back and, saw the city going up in smoke. They found themselves trapped with nowhere to run. The army on the run toward the wilderness did an about face. Joshua and all Israel, seeing that the ambush had taken the city, saw it going up in smoke, turned and attacked the men of Ai. Then the men in the ambush poured out of the city. The men of Ai were caught in the middle with Israelites on both sides, a real massacre. And not a single survivor except for the king of Ai. They took him alive and brought him to Joshua. When it was all over, Israel had killed everyone in Ai, whether in the fields or in the wilderness, whether they had chased them. When the killing was complete, the Israelites returned to Ai and completed the devastation. The death toll that day came to 12,000 men and women, everyone in Ai. What did the women do? Jesus. Joshua didn't lower his outstretched javelin until the sacred destruction of Ai and all its people was completed. Israel did get to the livestock and loot left in the city. God's instructions to Joshua allowed for that. Joshua burned Ai to the ground, a heap of nothing forever and no place. Go see for yourself. He hanged the king of Ai from a tree at evening with the sun going down. Joshua ordered the corpse down. They dumped it at the entrance of the city and piled it high with stones. You can go see that also. Then Joshua built an altar to the God of Israel on Mount Ebal. He built it following the instructions of Moses, the servant of God, to the people of Israel, and written in the book of the Revelation of Moses, an altar whose holds stones that had been chiseled or shaped by an iron tool. On it, they offered to God whole burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings. He also wrote a copy of the revelation of Moses on the stones. He wrote it with the people of Israel looking on. All Israel was there, foreigners and citizens alike, with their elders, officers, and judges standing on the opposite sides of the chest, facing the Levitical priests who carried God's covenant chest. Half of the people stood with their backs to Mount Gerizim, and half with their backs to Mount Ebal to bless the people of Israel, just as Moses, the servant of God, had instructed earlier. After that, he read out everything written in the Revelation, the blessing and the curse, everything in the book of the Revelation. There wasn't a word of all that Moses commanded that Joshua didn't read to the entire congregation, men, women, children, and foreigners who had been with them on the journey. This is the word.